The Splash to Marketo integration works by updating specific fields in the Marketo lead database based on specific actions that might occur inside Splash. So for instance, we could configure this integration to set the value of specific fields in Marketo's lead database each time someone RSVPs to a certain event inside Splash. And quite importantly, these values are dynamic, based on the data that the registrant filled out and based on the details of the event that they're interacting with. Let's take a look at how we would actually set this up. When logged into Splash, navigate to the Account Info area. Once there, click on the Integration tab. If any integrations have already been set up, they'll be presented here. Since we're connecting Splash and Marketo for the first time, click the New Integration button. You'll be presented with a list of all of the different systems that Splash can integrate with out of the box. Select the Marketo Leads API, and you'll be prompted with a Marketo authorization screen. Copy your client ID and client secret of the API user that you set up for this integration in Marketo, and the Munchkin code of your instance as the domain. All of these things can be found in the Integrations area of the Admin section of Marketo. To start the mapping process, we'll get started by giving our integration a descriptive name and selecting the trigger. In this case, we'll select the Attendee trigger and then select an action. While you can select multiple actions here, you're probably best off selecting just one, and it'll be more obvious why in just a moment. Select the behavior of this integration. The API offers 3 different options, though most people will choose the Create or Update setting, which checks if an attendee's email exists in Marketo. If it does, it'll update that lead, and if it doesn't, it'll create a new lead and pass the values that you map there. In the Field Mapping section, choose Add a Field. In the new Mapping section that's presented, we'll go to the Splash Object dropdown and select Contact, which will populate a list of values in the Splash field dropdown next to it. Select Email from this list. In the Remote field, you'll see a list of fields from your Marketo lead database. Select Email from this list, and you've mapped the email fields together. Now, click the Add a Field button again to repeat this process for each field that you'd like to map. The bare minimum that you should always map together is email, first name, and last name. However, you can map any additional fields like company, job title, country, phone number, and even opt-ins for specific marketing programs with this approach. Rather than using the Contact Splash object, this time we'll choose Event. In the Splash field dropdown, we'll select Event Domain. And in the Remote field dropdown, we'll find the Splash Event Domain field that we created when we first configured Marketo. In this next mapping, we'll configure a custom value to send to Marketo each time someone RSVPs to an event, so we'll select Custom from the Splash Object dropdown. In the Splash field, we'll simply type the value that we'd like to send, and select the Remote field as Splash Event Status. Make sure that you scroll up to the top so that you can turn the integration on, and then back down to the bottom to save the whole thing. From now on, if anyone RSVPs to an event in this instance of Splash, their data, including the subdomain of the event and their status on that event's event-level guest list, will be sent to Marketo. If we want to trigger similar updates based on being added to the guest list, or checked into the event itself, we can duplicate the current one that we've just created and make modifications to the name, to the action in Splash that sets it off, and to the custom value that we're sending as the status. So to review, we've connected Splash to our instance of Marketo using the instance's Munchkin code, along with the LaunchPoint API user's client ID and client secret. We've also created a mapping of data collected about a Splash event registrant to fields in the Marketo lead database, including sending over the subdomain of the specific event that they're on the guest list for, and a custom value to reflect that person's status on that guest list. And finally, we've duplicated that same mapping, making updates to the mapping's name, trigger action, and status value for each action that we'd like to leverage in Splash. At this point, we've done everything that we need to do to start creating programs in Marketo that are actually updated by actions that happen in Splash.